Most of the builds within Diablo 2 have gear slots filled either with uniques or rune words. And as you play the game, you'll notice that a myriad of both rare and magic items drop. And most people tend to ignore them because they get overwhelmed either with identifying them, and more importantly, don't know which stats to look for, thus missing out on valuable drops that can be either best in slot for certain builds or used for trading for other valuable items that you may need. In this video, we are going to look over those items, what stats you should be looking for, and what is worth keeping or trading. So for amulets, we now have an example of an Amazon amulet. So 2 to all skills, 4% lifesteal are both desirable stats. The 70 dexterity, especially for a class like an Amazon, where their weapons tend to require higher dexterity than most other classes, is also a very nice stat to have. And then on top of that, there's a little bit of all res. Now, definitely that could have been rolled higher, but this is a decent amulet. However, I will say this, rare amulets aren't necessarily the best thing, although like something like this could have decent value to it, and that's purely because crafted amulets can roll a lot better, especially at higher levels, and that's something that's kind of outside the scope of this video, but it's one of the reasons why it isn't as valuable. That being said, magic amulets, on the other hand, are a lot more valuable. Take this, for example, 3 to combat skills and 100 to life. So the 100 to life is actually pretty decent, given that for the majority of the game, even in the end, your life is only around a couple K. That's a decent increase to it, as well as having the 3 to combat skills. Now, for a paladin, you can argue that 2 to all skills, um, Maras with like the all res and stuff could be better. That being the reason being said is 3 to combat skills does give you only the combat skills, while as for example, let's say you're playing a smiter, you benefit from 2 to combat skills if you're using Amaras, and you also benefit from an increase to fanaticism by 2 from the Mars amulet as well. So again, that's a little bit build dependent, but having an amulet like this drop could definitely be worth a lot to certain people who are playing certain builds. Alternatively, for sorcerers, for example, here we have a 3 to cold skills and 10% faster cast rate amulet. So now, sorcerers typically tend to play one of the skill trees. You're either fire, ice, or lightning. So this specifically boosts all your cold skills by 3, and on top of that gives you that 10% faster cast rate that can help you hit breakpoints in order to maximize your damage and your build. And that makes this type of amulet very much desirable. So for rings, for rare ones especially, is a good example right here. So we have Mana Steel and Life Steal combined. Those are very desirable stats to begin with. And then on top of that, Strength is something that's a very highly desirable stat. The reason being is ideally you want to put most of your points into health. So getting Strength bonus from your ring does help counteract that. And then you have to put less points into your Strength, and you can put more points into Vitality instead. And on top of that, having the all resist also makes it very nice. So this would be a very desirable ring for something like a barbarian or a zealer or a javazon. Any melee build typically will like rings like this. That being said, the Bull Kothos can also be a solid option. But if you get one that's like crazy roll like this, it could be preferred over something like Bull Kothos. You can also get fast cast rate on rings, so all the caster classes hammered in Sorks. Necromancers would also love rings with a stat like that over something like Lifesteal, for example. It really depends on how your ring is rolled. If your ring rolls, for example, like faster cast rate and Lifesteal, not usually used in conjunction with one another, so that might not be an ideal ring. But if it only has one and then has like strength or dexterity for a Javazon, for example, or and then a bunch of resists, it becomes a very desirable ring. Now, alternatively, for magic rings, we have this 40% MMF ring. And why is this good? Is for people that specifically want like full-on magic find builds. The biggest unique ring is an Angel Ring, and that only goes up to 30% magic find. And the rest of its stats are kind of mediocre as well, like nothing really crazy about it. So having something like this could be more desired for people that just want these like crazy magic find builds that they're trying to min max, like going for like 700-800% magic find, stuff like that. You can have like these rings be of a lot more value. So starting things off, we have this Paladin circlet right here. Now you can see that it has 2 to Paladin skill levels, which is a nice stat. On top of that, it has faster run walk, so for characters that don't use an Enigma on a Paladin, that makes it really good, as well as faster cast rate. Now, let's say you're playing a Hammerdin, the faster run walk probably not as useful as you will be using an Enigma for your build. But it also has other stats as well, like the all resist and the magic damage reduction, which isn't great, but it's a little bit something extra. Now, each of these stats on their own don't really make the item very valuable. However, combined together do make it incredibly valuable. And to make it even more so than this, let's take a look at this Sorcerer's Circlet right here. So just like the other one, it has 2 to Sorcerer skills, it has faster cast rate. Run walk wouldn't be necessary for a Sorceress because every single Sorceress build does use teleport, with the exception of maybe like the Enchant Bear Sorceress. That would be nice to have some run walk speed. It also gives a little bit of life and all resist. But what's really makes it kind of a fully end game helmet is the fact that it also has 2 sockets on top of this. Now, in these sockets, you can put runes, you can put facets to greatly increase your damage and lower their resist, and stuff like that. So having this would make it a lot more powerful than, let's say, like a Shaco, for example. That being said, for a Sorceress, let's say if you're playing a Lightning build, maybe ideally you want a Griffin's. If you're playing a Cold build, Nightwing's Veil could be more ideal. But there isn't really a helmet for Fire Sorcerers, so this would be a very desirable helmet for somebody that's playing a Fire Sorceress. Alternatively, you can also have very good magic circlets. So, like this one here, unlike its rare counterpart, it won't give 2 to the skills of the class, but it will give +3 to a very specific tree for that class. So in this case, it would be 3 to traps for an assassin, which is a very big endgame build for them. It also gives faster cast rate, and it has the 2 necessary sockets to again add either some lightning facets or fire facets if you're playing a fire trap build, although they're a little bit less prevalent. The idea is that the stats individually by themselves won't necessarily make the item great, but having them combined on the same item can make the item a lot more valuable and even be a best in slot item for certain builds. Now, rare and magic gloves are a little bit special, right? So they can roll any crazy stuff, and for the most part, they won't be used for any build over a unique pair of gloves. However, for 2 specific classes, that being the Amazon and the Assassin, they can roll 2 to one of the skill trees for rares. On top of that, attack speed and mana and lifesteal. And that makes them an insane pair of gloves because no other gloves in the game will give you 2 to those skills. Alternatively, if they're magic and not rare, that now gets bumped up to 3 to those skills. And having something like faster um, attack speed, or sorry, increased attack speed, can make them very, very desirable and worth quite a bit for endgame builds. They're not overly hard to find, for example, with the skill, but like that combined with the attack speed, lifesteal, and stuff like that makes them very desirable items. And again, for rare, it'll be 2 to the skill tree. For magic, it'll be 3. And this is specific only to Amazons and Assassins. So, when it comes to boots, you ideally only want to be looking for rare boots. The desired stats, as you can see on screen now, is faster run walk, faster hit recovery, 3 of the resistance stats, and these are pretty high numbers, like 25, 34, 26 is a decent increase to your resistance, as well as Magic Find makes this like one of the craziest pair of boots I've ever seen rolled in the game, to be fair. The reason I say that these three resist in particular is because not a lot of the mobs in Diablo 2 tend to do poison damage. So ideally, the ones you want the most will always be cold, lightning, and fire. The exception is probably like Endariel. Mephisto does a little bit of poison. Some of the mobs in Act 2 poison you, but overall, especially for like endgame farming spots, not a lot of mobs have poison. Also, poison doesn't really kill you instantly, whereas the other three can. Anyways, not to say that poison resist is not necessary. It's something that you should definitely have and you should try to get maxed. But ideally, these are the three main resistances that you do want to see. And having all of these stats combined together on a pair of boots makes them absolutely insane. Something like this would probably go for like 3 to 4 bear rooms, I want to say. Like, just absolutely insane value for these items. So for shields, you're looking for Magic Monarch shields, and you want them to be a Jeweler's Monarch of Deflecting, and you want it to have 4 sockets. Now, why is this so nice? Is because you get this crazy chance to block, and then you have a faster block rate, and then you can put 4 of these like lightning facets in it, for example, and then now you have minus 20% enemy lightning resistance, and then you have 20% lightning skill damage, and all these is just a very very crazy shield, right? Because uh, of all the combination of all these stats, and people that desire these are, for example, like lightning Javazons will love this shield. It's basically their best in slot. Same with the lightning sorcerers, could also get a lot of use of the shield. On top of that, having like the death facets instead of the level up facets, like having that 400% to cast level 47 chain lightning when you die will pretty much clear the area around your body. So if something does happen and you do die, then you get to go back and get your body a little bit more safely. But you do want to see a Jeweler's Monarch of Deflecting. It's one of the craziest items in the game. It's very rare. I've personally never seen one myself drop, and I'm hoping to. Alternatively, there's also the Paladin version of it, where it's like the Jeweler's Sacred Targe of Deflecting. Again, even crazier block chance with that faster block rate, and Paladin shields can roll like all resistance as like an implicit modifier for the item, which makes it even more insane. You could also roll enhanced damage, which could be used for like smiters and stuff. That being said, you want an exile for a smiter, so it's probably not the most ideal, but these shields are very much desired. So, as far as class specific items are concerned, they can also be very valuable. I would say the magic ones are probably more valuable than the rare ones. For example, here we have this glowing orb of wizardry, glacial glowing orb of wizardry, and as you can see, this is a very insanely rolled sorcerer's weapon. So it gives 3 to cold skills, 3 to blizzard, and 2 to glacial spike. Not to mention the added bonus of a little bit of life and energy. Now, having 6 to blizzard just from your weapon is insane on its own. Most blizzard builds will also fill in with like glacial spike, for example, so having both of those just makes it a very very insane roll. And on top of that, you can take this to Lazar, get it to add some sockets. Hopefully you get 2. uh, with Lazar rolling sockets on magic items, it won't always guarantee you the maximum number of sockets that it can have. So even though, like, even without any sockets whatsoever, just the fact that it gives like 6 to blizzard and like 5 to glacial spike essentially just makes it an insane item. On top of that, you can, if you do get 2 sockets, you can throw in like 2 cold facets in there, and boom, this is like one of the best weapons a cold sorcerers will ever have in their life. Alternatively, for barbarians, you can have something like this that gives like 3 to war cries and then 3 to battle orders. These are very sought after helms, and again, they can also be rolled with sockets at Lazark. I do believe 2 is also the maximum that they can have, and again, it could be 1 or 2. The more it is, the more sockets it gets, the more the item will be worth. but it's a very insane item. That's just everything there's to it. Um, Another thing like the Amazon javelins can also roll like I believe up to six um for javelin skills, which is insane, especially for those like a little bit of attack speed and other stats like that. Make them very desirable. Same like assassin claws, um, necro offhands, paladin shields could also have some crazy rolls, though those are a little bit less desired, I would say. Druid helmets again could also give you like crazy like three to elemental skills and three to hurricane or other stuff like that. That's very much desirable to give you a crazy like boost to your skills. So, when it comes to charms, the things you want to keep an eye out for is grand charms and small charms. Large charms aren't very much desired, primarily because due to the how useful grand charms are, they can't really be fitted in the way the inventory works. You typically can fit a lot of grand charms, and then you can fit small charms underneath them to fill up your inventory. Now, starting off with the grand charms, here we have one that gives one to summoning skills for a druid and 45 to life. Usually, the stats that you are looking for are these two. 45 to life is a perfect roll. This is a crazy charm. This is something that's worth probably a couple high runes, at the very least. And you want charms, for example, for an Amazon, you don't want something that really gives one to like passive and magic skills. You want either to bows or to javelins. For sorcerers, all three of them are worthwhile. Even by themselves, like it doesn't even need the life, it'll still be worth quite a decent amount just by it being a skill or grand charm. Then moving on to small charms, we have this right here. And this is a very crazy small charm. For the record, I will state that. Chances of me getting these is very, very rare. But uh, life small charms in general, so they go up to 20 life. Those are very nice charms to have. Maybe just having the life won't be worth too much, but it still can be worth something like an or a mal or a pull. Something like this would probably be worth like two high runes. If it was perfect, people will pay a lot for having those like perfect rolled small charms. And ideally, the three perfect sets that you do want is the maximum damage, the attack rating, and the life. You can also have stuff like faster hit recovery, life, and those are also very nice. Or you ideally want to look for stuff that has like resistances or all resistances is very desirable. Any combination of these stats will make these charms have a tremendous value to people, whether it's for yourself or whether you want to trade them for something else. Always identify small charms and grand charms when they draw. When it comes to jewels, the craziest one that you'll ever probably see is something like this. That's 40% enhanced damage and 15% attack speed increase. Um, Not to say that if it had like lower enhanced damage, it wouldn't be worthwhile because it would still be worth a lot. Something like this could go probably for like three high runes. I want to say 2 to 3 high runes, depending on if it's like seasonal, non-seasonal, or how early it is in the season. But these are very, very valuable to have. Something like this is worth a fortune for pretty much anybody. Alternatively, you can find jewels that are give you like max enhanced damage and stuff like that that are like lower level requirement. And even though they don't seem very crazy, people do want them for stuff such as LLD, which stands for lower level duels. I personally don't really do lower level duels, so like for me, it wouldn't be worth it. But people that do lower level duels love having these like crazy like low jewels that boost your damage, so those can be worth a lot to people that are looking for them. Uh, Jewels typically don't. You mainly want to find magic ones, rare ones. You can find decent ones, but it's not as likely. So ideally, you want to find these magic jewels, and even 40% enhanced damage on its own would still be worth quite a little bit. Um, you can also find stuff with faster hit rate recovery. Those can be very nice. Desired life, depending on what else it rolls with, can be desired. But yeah, ideally you want magic jewels, not so much the rare ones. Finish things off, the items that you do want to loot and identify are as follows. So, magic and rare amulets, magic and rare circlets or coronets, magic or rare gloves, rare boots, magic or rare rings, magic grand charms or small charms, magic class specific items, and that includes the paladin shields, magic monarch shields, and magic jewels. That is going to be it for this video, guys. These are the items you should be keeping an eye out for while magic finding outside of uniques. If I missed any, do let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel. As always, my social media information will be in the video description below. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.